Hello and welcome to the ACT preparation course. We will be going over a few things that will be very helpful for you as you study for the ACT. But beyond that, I believe that it will be good to go over the why. Why am I studying for the ACT? Why do I want to go to college? What college should I consider? Now, we won't necessarily go into detail on all of those questions, but I'm hoping that in this session, we will be able to inspire you. If you're interested in going to college, we'll be able to inspire you to put in the work to do the best that you can on the ACT, so that you can get as many scholarships as you can get based on the ACT score, because some colleges will give you more funding based on your ACT score. So I want to do my part in inspiring you to give your best as you study for the ACT. My name is Amos Tarfa, and I am a medical physicist by full training. That's my full-time position as a medical physicist now. But I also have taught ACT course material for about 8 years. I used to be a full-time math and science teacher, and then I switched over and started a tutoring center where we helped students prepare for ACT, SAT, AccuPlacer, and also homework help and studying for different subjects and things like that. So that's a little bit of my background. I am the founder and director of the Learning Institute for Excellence, which has a goal of igniting lifelong learning, getting people to think about how they can be lifelong learners, how they can apply themselves to excellence in the materials they're studying. So you can read more about my story and my biography on the website, but my hope now is to inspire you in this course to do the best that you can on the ACT. So we're going to take a step back, talk about a few big picture issues, and then we'll zoom into the ACT. The ACT is an exam that, again, many students in the Midwestern part of the United States, and other parts of the country take, but especially in the Midwest, from what I've seen so far. And also students, some students from other countries use the ACT as a standardized test that they take before coming to before coming over to America. So in this course, we're going to be covering sort of strategies of different parts of the ACT, and then I'll tell you some of the tools and the directions I think you should go in preparing for what lies ahead. So stay tuned for that. As a part of what you've signed up for, I will be willing to, at least see what your baseline score was like and give you some recommendations. And so please do not hesitate to email me after you take that baseline exam to see how you're doing right now. We will go over, as I said, briefly strategies for each of the sections, and then on our Teachable website you will see that there is a sort of a 5 set of videos on the 5 set of videos that go over what it takes as you prepare to take your baseline test. So this video is pretty much imagine we're sitting down in a classroom and I'm teaching a group of students about strategies to study for the ACT. That's what this video is mostly about. But it's also getting them to understand how the exam is set up and what they need to do to excel. We will do this video first, and then you can jump into the practice that I recommend. But let's make sure that we do it in order. Watch this video and to the end, get all that you need, and then you move from there. So the ACT is a standardized test that takes that many students take in their junior or senior year. But I actually recommend that students take the ACT as early as middle school. I recommend that students in 8th grade or early high school, 8th grade or 9th grade, should consider preparing for the ACT. Now, why do I say that? Because one of the strategies you need to do very well on the ACT is actually the strategy that involves practice corrections, and that involves time. And you would notice that as you go further in your high school education, you might not have as much time. So that's why if you're in middle school and you're studying for the ACT, you might have more time to dedicate to studying for the exam. So it's important that if you can, and if you have siblings who are in 8th grade or 9th grade, that you encourage them to start looking at it. But don't worry, if you're in 11th grade or 12th grade, we can still make we could still do the best we can right now with the time we have. But I'm just saying, ideal case scenario, let's get the younger students to begin to think about it, because the content on the exam is not necessarily very difficult for that age level. As a matter of fact, the English section, for example, people could take the English section in 8th grade and do very well. They could score in the 30s in 8th or 9th grade. The same thing goes for the math section for 9th graders, 9th or 10th graders, because the math section doesn't have calculus, right? So you're not dealing with 11th or 12th grade math. There's a little bit of trigonometry. Sometimes we're talking of 4 questions from trigonometry. So it's not a lot of upper level math necessarily. Your pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, these are the things that will help you as you prepare, especially for the math section. So that's a recommendation as far as when you should think about taking it. But again, no matter what grade level you're at, let me know if that's a concern. If you feel like you're in 12th grade and you don't have as much time to study, let me know and we can give you plans that will help you make the most of the time you have. My ideal goal for my students when they're doing the ACT course, the ideal goal is if they can do a 6-week sort of focused study. Now, the reason why I use 6 weeks as a tool is because in between some exams, you have about 6 weeks. And so it gives you time after you've taken an exam. Let's say you take the ACT in September and you feel like you didn't do as well as you wanted to. You can begin to study for the next one, which is usually offered in October. And so keep that in perspective as far as why we're recommending sort of a 6-week plan and 6 practice tests if possible. Standardized tests people take before graduating high school. Sometimes people take it just to have as part of, I would say, their graduation kit. They don't need it because they're not going to college, or they're going to a college that doesn't need it, but they just want to take the exam so that they can say they've taken the ACT. There are 5 sections on the exam. One of them is optional, and let's quickly talk about that. And then I want to talk to you about college and what my recommendations are as you think about college. So we have the English section, which has 75 questions. So the number of questions, we have 75 questions, and you're given 45 minutes to complete the English section. So you would notice that time on the test is one of the strategies you need to learn. You need to learn how to take the test with the time that you've been given. The math section has 60 questions and 60 minutes. The reading section has 40 questions and 35 minutes. The science section has 40 questions and 35 minutes. And the writing section has 1 question and about 40 minutes. So we have 5 sections. The writing section is optional. I would recommend maybe you take it at least once. They have changed the writing section through the years. So what it was in 2016 is not the same as what you might see now if you take it. The format has changed a little bit. So if you have older textbooks, make sure that you recognize the writing section has changed. You don't want to show up to the exam hall and be confused as to why the writing looks very different from what your book taught you. So we have 5 sections. The writing section is optional, and the other 4 sections, I've given you the number of questions and the time for each section. You would notice that in math, for example, 60 questions in 60 minutes, that can seem very difficult for some people. That, it can be very concerning. How do you complete 60 questions in 60 minutes? Well, there are some strategies to do that, and there are some tools that I will be giving you that you can use to master the fundamentals of all the math concepts you need to know in taking the ACT. There is a website for the ACT, actstudent.org. If you actually go to that website, actstudent.org/test prep, they actually have a practice test that you can use for your baseline test. If you cannot find that, please do not hesitate to email me, and we can go ahead and send you, whatever you need or access to what you need to practice the first test. So we've talked about the 5 sections. We've talked about the optional section. Let's talk about 3 reasons why you should study for the ACT. The first reason is whatever is worth doing well. If you're going to do something, then you should do it well. If you're not doing it, it's something else. But if you're going to do it, then you should strive to do the best that you can while you do it. So if you're going to take this exam or do anything else, then I highly recommend that you do your best. I want you to give your best again on this test. So the ACT is not an exception to this rule. Since you're going to take it, then study and prepare so that you can take it well. Again, don't try comparing yourself to all other people either, though. Do the best that you can with all the tools you have, and then when the results come out, you can at least say, I did what I could with what I had. And you can always study to move your score up if you want, but at least in going into first your baseline test and then any other test after that, always seek to apply your best. Number 2, if you score in the 30s on the SAT, it can provide some opportunities and some scholarships from certain universities. And maybe the one you're already applying to, it can definitely give you that. So if you do not want to take out student loans, then you might want to graduate, then you might want to take all the study tools you have and get the best score you can, and hopefully you don't have to take out student loans. If you graduate with less debt from college, it really helps then, so you don't have to have that as you go into your first job. You don't want to be thinking about that all the time, which leads me to something I need to quickly mention. The university you go to. Now, this is something that has been documented in several books, and please, if you want me to provide you with some of these books or resources that talk about these issues, let me know. But the university you go to, the goal in going to that university should not be, can I accumulate a lot of debt so that I can say that I went to a school that has a mascot of this, that, or the other? That should really not be our goal. And I'm telling you that now, again, just as a teacher who has watched students go through different universities, and just knowing the system in America, especially with the student loan crisis. There's a lot of people I know who are saying things like, I wish I did not take out that much in student loans. I wish I didn't go to that university. I wish I went to a community college first. So there's all these things that you have to keep in perspective. Again, it's your choice as far as what university you go to, but I just want to encourage you to really examine, why are you going to this university? Why do you want this particular university? And how do you plan to pay for it? Those are some important things. Now, if someone is paying for your university and you have, it's all paid for, that's one thing. But if you're planning to take out student loans, then you might want to look at, what university am I going to? Why am I going to it? Is it worth it? What major am I going to go into? Which leads me to another thing I want to discuss in this first video. College is not for everybody. Okay? The reason why I say that is because there are some people who have certain gifts, certain tools, and they don't want to go to college. Well, we shouldn't make them feel guilty or sort of like you didn't make it in life because you didn't go to college, because college is actually not for everybody. Now, the stuff that is taught in certain universities, the content, for example, in a chemistry class or in a good communications class, those are things that people should learn no matter what they want to do in life. And so maybe you don't go to a typical college setting, but you could take community courses at a community college, or maybe you can take courses in a more informal setting, or you watch videos on YouTube and get the material you need to know what you need to do. So for example, you love working with heating and ventilation, okay, air conditioners and all of that, and you don't want to go to a typical four-year college. Well, that's fine. But if you have good communication skills, then you're probably going to have more customers that can relate with you and have good dialogue. Do you see what I'm saying? So you still need to have good communication skills, even if you go into a field where you might just be working by yourself most of the time or with coworkers. Well, it will be a good idea to have good skills for working with your customers and your clients. So what I'm trying to say is everybody needs to learn certain things, but those things don't have to be learned in a typical college setting. They can be learned in other areas. So the chemist needs to have good communication skills. The electrician needs communication skills. Whatever you're doing, you need good communication skills. And so there are some courses that all college students have to take. And so the reason they do that is partly so that these students are well-rounded, they say. But I can graduate from a program, become an electrician, and just have my own personal learning pattern where I'm learning communication, where I'm learning chemistry for fun, where I'm learning calculus for fun. See, learning doesn't need to happen only in a college setting. It should happen everywhere. All the time. We can learn. And so I really want to encourage you to think about, why are you going to college? Now, some people say, well, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm just going to go. Well, why don't you go to a community college first to do your generals, so that at least you get those done at a cheaper rate, because you're not sure what you're going to do after that, right? So maybe that's one option. If you have questions on this whole topic of college and majors, let me know, because I will possibly make more videos on my YouTube channel about topics of college and student loan debt and how to avoid student loan debt. So let me know if you're interested in that, and we can add you to the subscription list. Studying for the ACT will provide you with the opportunity of going to the exam hall and enjoying the testing process. Since you're studying, you will be very familiar with the types of problems that they give. And of course, it will be a more enjoyable process. So the ACT, if you're going to take it, whatever is worth doing well. Number 2, scoring in the 30s can open doors and give you opportunities to go to college at a lower price. Number 3, studying for the ACT will definitely make the process more enjoyable. So let's make it a hobby in a sense, something that you hopefully enjoy doing from day to day. So those are 3 reasons why you should study for the ACT. We've given you 3 reasons. So keep those reasons in mind as you study. Every student is unique, so even if a certain technique works for one student, it might not work exactly the same way for another student. So make sure you keep track of the things that are working well for you. Seek to explore the different techniques that are available to help you excel in each section. Studying for the ACT is worth it in the long run. It is worth it. Seek to give your best today as you invest in this venture. Okay, let's dive into the next thing I want to talk about. There are many resources. Okay, let's talk about resources. There are many resources that you can use to study for the ACT. Now, I have some material that I will present to you on our website or through email. If you need anything, let me know. That if we have it, we'll get it to you. We have good textbooks, open source textbooks that have been made available to the public through certain universities. There's links for those. We can get those to you if you need to review algebra or pre-algebra, whatever you need to review. So there are many resources available to students who are studying for the ACT. Most public libraries will have some of the books that you could use to study. Students should seek to have a copy of different ACT materials. And we're going to talk about part of why this is very important. If you have, for example, the option of getting multiple resources, this was what I would recommend. So there's a company called Barron's that makes ACT material and other test prep material. So we have Barron's, we have Princeton Review. So I'm going to write Princeton Review, and we have Kaplan. So I've listed 3 of them. There is also Wiley, which is another publisher that makes books for the ACT. There's one that used to be Peterson's. I don't know if they still make those ones now, but that was one that we used in the beginning of our ACT prep course back in the day. But I would say that some of these materials and the one on the ACT website, these are very good materials. There's even a website called like ACT Academy where you can get practice materials also. So there are a few publishers now that I've listed. If you get their ACT material, you can use that for practice purposes. You can also use whatever you need in terms of finding videos for specific concepts. Of course, you can find those on YouTube, and that would be one resource to keep in mind, of course, is looking up things on YouTube for what you're studying. So these are some of the textbooks. What do we need to do then in studying for the ACT? We need to make time to practice. So we're going to talk about what this practice model is and why I recommend that you use this model. And then in the next segment of our video, we're going to go into more specifics in each of the sections of the ACT. So quickly, we have number 1. This is a process that I recommend as you study for the ACT. There is a sequence that I want you to use. I want you to take a test, right? That's step 1. Take a test. So you take the test and you go through all the sections, or you could take one section at a time. So maybe one section on Monday, one section on Tuesday, one section on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So Monday might be your English section, Tuesday your math section, Wednesday your reading section, Thursday your science section, and then Friday your writing section. After you take the test, I want you to, of course, you have to grade, right? A lot of the tests that you'll find will have an answer key that you can get. Grade the test, right? After you grade the test, then do your corrections. So do your corrections. So you take a test, you grade the test, right? So let's say there was number 1, 2, 3, and it was A, B, C, and you got the first one right, you got the second one right, and you got the third one wrong. Now, I grew up in Nigeria, so we use the check mark for correct. And I know that in America, the check mark could be wrong, but you get the idea. Check mark, in this case, is correct. So you get A and number 1 and 2 correct, you get number 3 wrong. Now, you do your corrections. What does it mean to do your corrections? Corrections means where you go and find out, why did you get number 3 wrong? Right? You said C, but the answer was D. Why did you get it wrong, and what can you do to fix that? Okay? So that's when you're doing your corrections. You're not just seeing that you got, in this case, 2 over 3, right? 2 out of 3, right? You're trying to see, why was I wrong on number 3? Now, there's a few scenarios with taking the test and grading the test. The first scenario is that you can know the answer to a question, right? You can know how to do a question, 100%. You know how to do it. You understand what you need to do. And of course, when you go to grade it, you get it right. Then you could have a situation where you guess and you get it right. What I want you to do is put an asterisk next to each of the guesses you make. Because if you guessed and you got it right, we still need to investigate why did you guess? What were you uncertain about with that question? If you guessed and you got it wrong, then of course you would investigate and find out what you need to do, right? So we have the situation where you know, we have a situation where you guess and you get it right. We have a situation where you guess and you get it wrong. We also have a situation where you have no idea. Well, in those cases, of course, you need to learn the concept, right? Now, when I say guess, you might have had an idea and you maybe use process of elimination. And you guessed it was A, but it was actually B, and you got it wrong, but you had an idea. But then there are some questions where you say, I have no idea how to do this question. See, those ones where you have no idea, you have to make sure you now go back and learn the concept, right? Especially in math, learn the concept well. So we have take the test, do your corrections, and then when you do your corrections, again, put an asterisk next to the ones that you say, the ones that involve guesses. And the ones that you have no idea, just, of course, prepare to learn those questions and see what you need to do for the next time. These are strategies that will be helpful. And again, there are some resources that I will talk about later on. Now, there is a software. There are software programs or websites like one called Magoosh that will actually give you a video explanation of all the questions you get wrong. That is a good tool that you can use as well. Let me know if you want more details on that. I have no affiliations with the organization, but I just have seen that their material seems to work well for students. Okay, now you've taken the test. You've graded the test, you've done your corrections, review. If you need to, review to see what do you need to prepare better in, or what field do you need to prepare to better tackle the next section. So that's the next thing, review. And then if you have a coach or a tutor, right, and you still have concerns, a coach or a tutor, reach out to them, right? And when you reach out to the coach or tutor, you can bring up this issue. Like, I got number 7 and 15 and 29 wrong. Why am I getting all the questions that have to do with polynomials wrong? Can you please summarize? I've looked at the details and I would really just like a summary, and your coach can work with you to encourage you. Now, you've taken the test, you've graded the test, you've done your corrections, you've reviewed where necessary, you've talked with the coach or with somebody else, and guess what? Repeat the process. So now you go back and you start the process again, where you take a test, grade the test, do your corrections, do the review, talk to a coach or tutor, and then go back and review it. Now imagine if you did this process 6 times. What I expect will happen is over time, if we could graph your progress, my hope is that wherever you start, you will make progress, okay? That it will be an upward climb. Now, it might go up a little bit, but as long as it's going upward, that's what we want. Now, you might have times where you might go down or you might stay steady. Don't be discouraged. Keep practicing. At the end of the day, it'll be worth it. So those are some strategies. Those are some things to keep in mind as you study for the ACT. I have listed, again, some textbooks and some resources. There's websites, and now, as I said, there are some websites that are free that can help you with further study. But this video and this series here specifically is to get you started and also to give you an opportunity to ask some of the maybe introductory questions, and then I can give you more of the resources or the list of resources that you can get connected to. So one last thing I want to talk about is time management. In order to make the most of your practice on the ACT, you have to make time, right? You have to make time for each for the study of the ACT. So in your schedule, one of the things I recommend to my students is, imagine if you had a schedule that tells you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we have, let's say, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and so on and so forth. Imagine if you could schedule in your day, like I'm going to do ACT practice 7 a.m. on Wednesday, for example. If you can dedicate the time, then you'll be able to do the practice that will then help you to get better, more comfortable, and then ultimately to do well on the ACT. So one of the most important tools in studying for the ACT is making time. And so make sure that you make time in your schedule it in, turn off that phone or put it away, put it on silent, and focus on the material at hand. Do that regularly and it will pay off. This ability to focus for an extended period of time will also help when you actually take the ACT. So please use the time management techniques that I've listed. Perseverance and endurance is going to be key in doing well on the ACT. So make sure that you have time scheduled, and if you don't want to do the full test in a day, then break it down into several days and let me know if you have questions on how to do that structure, and then we'll go from there. I will, in the second part of our session, we're going to now look at some more specifics as to how to study for the ACT in each of the sections. Again, I recommend that people think about studying earlier on in middle school, later middle school, or early high school, because they might have more time. They don't have a job where they go to after school. They might not be in varsity sports where they're traveling more. This is the time, let's encourage the younger ones to look into it. If they do the prep in 9th grade, for example, they don't have to then come back and do more in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade with us, because they would have had time to do the practice that they needed to do. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I will go ahead and give you a quick break, and then we'll go back to the second part and talk about each of the sections. Thank you.